Hi everyone, my name is Holly and welcome to my February wrap-up where I will be reviewing and flipping all of the books I read in February. Now, I read a total of 5 books, which isn't bad, but I definitely could have done better. We could always do better, which is what March is for. March is all about transformation, so I feel like I'm going to read a ton in March, but let's go ahead and go through these books because I will be flipping a few on the shelf, which is going to be amazing. So throughout February, I was kind of battling this I don't really know what to read war in my brain. I have plenty of options, don't get me wrong, so I went ahead and picked out books that I was just super excited about, and some I have been putting off for months. Overall, a very entertaining month. Let me show you the very first book that I read, which was Fate of the Fallen by Kel Cade. I actually buddy read this with Jess from Stars Above Jess. I adore her so much. I will link her channel down below for you. I highly recommend checking her out. And we were so excited to start this. This was one of my most anticipated releases of last year, and one of hers as well, and we both never got to it. So we decided to fix that problem together. The story actually begins with two friends who live in this small remote village. We have Matthias, who is known as the Chosen One, who is foretold in this prophecy to save the world from this imminent doom. And then we have Aslo, who is a forester, which I found to be like one of the most interesting parts about this book. A forester is someone in this world who protects trees and replants them after they have been chopped down for logging. Foresters are incredibly important in this story, but overall I found this book to be incredibly disappointing. And Jess and I both feel extremely the same way. We're pretty much on the same wavelength. Our thoughts aligned very well. The premise of the story is so much better than its actual delivery, and trust me, there are definitely some really good parts within it, but they didn't go well together in a way that worked. I found this book to be structured really awkwardly. It's approaching a fairly serious topic in kind of a deadpan manner, turning it kind of comedic. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's normally what I find to be a perfect fantasy, but this one went a little bit too far. Some stuff were eye roll worthy, cringy, even especially the dialogue. The dialogue was very cringy. Like, for instance, the reason why Matthias is the chosen one is because he has a birthmark on his forehead that is in the shape of the world. And me and Jess found that so funny. And I kept making jokes like, oh, so if I had a birthmark in the shape of Kansas, that would make me like the Queen of Kansas. There's just really nothing to discover in this. Everything is laid out for you. Like, there's a character who was holding a secret for 26 years, and then she has no qualms whatsoever just spilling that secret out in an instant to many characters. I honestly felt like I was reading a dramatic theater monologue. That's literally the biggest thing, is that this book is just flat out awkward, and it makes me so sad. I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars. Jess also ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. There's a lot of good things happening here, but unfortunately the negatives just took over. Let's go to a more positive route. I read The Song of All by Tina LeCount Myers. This is a book that I went to with mid to high expectations. The Goodreads rating is absolute hot garbage. It has like a 3.6, which on average is not that great, and this was a pure cover buy for me from Book Outlet. So, I mean, it's winter, it was snowing outside, and I mean, this cover just screams snow and a winter read, so I decided to pick it up, and it was not a disappointment. This author weaves a cinematic tale of adventure and survival, interweaving history and Scandinavian mythology, and with the backdrop of a epic frozen tundra. We're following our main character Erjan, who used to live this brutal life as a warrior, killing, but he's tired of that, so he decides to basically run away and live in this remote village where he begins a new life. He has a wife now and a baby, but unfortunately a very nosy priest digs up his past and destroys everything. There is just so much to discover in this, and I want to mention that I read along with the audiobook because a lot of words and phrases are said in a different language, and I feel like it really helped with the narrator saying those words, with like this word right here that I'm putting on the screen. Yeah, I have read the second book and I didn't need the audiobook. Actually, I don't think it has an audiobook, but I can now say this word. I'm not gonna say it out loud because I'll just butcher it, but I can say it in my brain. So it feels great knowing that I have caught up on like a new language in a way. I found the story so enjoyable, especially the really weird magic system that involves being on different planes of existence. For example, there is a chase happening throughout most of this book, and there is a tribe called the Immortals who can basically slip into what is known as the Song of All, which normal humans can't do. It involves hearing verses of like trees and plant life and other humans as well. It sounds really complex, and it kind of is, but the author does a really great job easing you into it. Overall, I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it is a very underrated fantasy series. It looks so good finally having a book flipped up there. From there, I finished The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, which is the conclusion to the original Mistborn series. I have an entire video of me talking, kind of rambling, kind of fangirling over the series. I'll link it down below for you. But oof, a bittersweet moment. It was so much fun to read. It was mind-blowing, explosive, and the mysteries at its core was like chef's kiss. I will say though that the middle of this book kind of dragged on a little bit slowly for me, which is why this book took me a lot longer to read than the first two. But obviously this is a beloved fantasy series, and if you haven't read from Brandon Sanderson, I highly recommend starting from Mistborn. It's about a ragtag group of individuals who try to overthrow this dark lord who has presided over this land for 1,000 years. A super cool magic system. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and it feels so good to finally have finished this series and also be able to go on to Era 2. Now, let's go flip this book, because I know we've all been waiting for it. Oh, you can't really see it. Let's just get this book out of the way, because I'm not flipping it. But look how good that looks. And then I went on to Thick as Thieves by Megan Wallen Turner. This is the 5th book in a very beloved historical fantasy series called the Queen's Thieves series. And I binge read the first 4 last year, but I never went on to this 5th book, and I totally regret it because I read this in one day, which is not something that I normally do. I shocked myself. In this installment, we are following Kemet, who is a character that pops up in book 2, and he's pretty much on the run, traveling from point A to point B with another character who I'm not going to mention because I feel like it's kind of a spoiler, so we'll keep that on a down low. So a lot of traveling, which is something I typically enjoy in a fantasy. I really like travel time. I wish I had remembered more details from the previous books because it plays a huge role within this plot. I had actually forgotten a lot, and I think if I would have remembered certain scenes, and especially the main character in this book, I couldn't even remember where he popped up in the previous books. If I had remembered, I know I would have enjoyed this book way more. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. I rate my books on my enjoyment, and I know it would be rated higher if I had remembered. So it's all my fault, blame my bad memory, but I am still very excited for the 6th book to come out, which is supposed to come out later this year, but I mean, we'll see. Let's just go flip this. And the final book that I read in February was The Killing Light by Mike Cool, another instance where I am kicking myself. I am a huge fan of the series. The first book, The Armored Saint, totally blew my mind when I read it a couple years ago, and it made me an instant fan. I was actually lucky enough to receive the ARC of this book before it came out, and I was totally planning on reading it. I even set it as currently reading on my Goodreads page at one point, but I was not ready for the series to end. I normally roll my eyes when someone holds off on a finale to a series because they're not ready for it, but I was one of those people. I became one of my pet peeves. Well, I finally read it, and wow, this book had so much packed into such a short amount of time. Action, drama, and suspense is all played out within this tense, emotional roller coaster, and especially with the characters and the situations that they find themselves in. The enemy is stronger than ever, and characters who absolutely hate each other have to come together to try and fight this evil. It was all one big emotional punch to my face. I was pretty much a punching bag the whole time I was reading this. I'm sad it's over. I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars, which you don't see that much around here, so you know it's good. I want more from this world, especially with how this series ended. Like, there can definitely be more within this universe, and I want it, Michael. I want it. Alrighty, so those are all the books that I read in February. Tell me down below what you read. What was your favorite book that you read in February? And also, what was the worst book that you read in February? Go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, because it helps me out so much. Go ahead and subscribe. I upload videos every single week. Follow me on Instagram at Holly Hurts Books and on Twitter at Holly Niece. And until we meet again, happy reading.